What's up guys, Kadum here. Today we're going to be looking at the 4.0 update of Jigsaw inventory system. In this video, it is kind of an overview of this update and also a tutorial at the same time. So the main highlight of this update is usage of data assets. As you can see here, we have a couple data assets. If you open the modular rifle, for example, as you can see here, this is a data asset, and as you can see, it's the same thing as the data table previously. You can enter your item ID, everything. Except that here we can do everything in one place, which is nice. So previously we had multiple data tables, an inspector data table, item data table, equipment data table, but now we have everything in one data asset. So here you have your item info, item name, description, etc. Here we have another section, equipment. This is where you specify what equipment you equip to the character, socket, and then the inspector, snap, section as well. You can specify what mesh to show, the FOV, etc. And the good thing about this is that you don't have to type this manually. You don't have to go in here and enter the FOV or anything like that. You can actually, we can actually write to the data asset directly at runtime. So if you go ahead and play, and let's say you open the modular rifle here and you click on toggle debug here. So if you check this option right here and start modifying these, the values that we have here will be written directly to the data asset. So all you gotta do here is just come back here and simply save the data asset, and we'll show that later. Here, local attachments. So this is mainly for attachments, but the main thing here is that everything is in one place. Okay, so we'll see that later when we create a weapon or attachment. So before we move forward, one thing is I've been getting here is how to migrate the Jigsaw folder only without a demo. All right, some people want to only use the base system and they don't need a demo. All right, so to do that, all you gotta do here is go to the utility helper here, open the jig container helper, then in the graph section there's a variable here called all jig assets. Okay, so select that, and I'll show you that later because we need it for certain things later for quick modifying items, etc. So this utility helper needs to be aware of all data assets. But here, what you want to do here is you want to clear this array and then compile save, and then come here and then simply migrate the Jigsaw folder. Okay, so to demonstrate that, we can simply select everything other than utility helper. And if we go ahead here and select migrate, as you can see, only the Jigsaw folder is taken. But obviously, if you also need the utility here, you can simply, like I said, clear this array because these data assets exist in the demo folder. That's why these assets will also be taken if you don't do that. Okay, so one other thing here, you need to go to project settings. This is if you migrate the data assets or the Jigsaw folder to another project. You need to go to asset manager and you need to add a new element, Jigsaw. Select the Jigsaw item data asset class, which is this one right here. This is what we're using with the data asset. It's a data asset blueprint. You can expand it however you want. You can add new elements, modify these items if you want, and of course specify the class, which is this one right here. Has blueprint classes, true. Here you need to select the main directory where the data assets exist. You don't have to select the specific folder. You can simply select the top folder like JS inventory. That should be fine. And then simply make sure that always cook is enabled. So obviously you want the data assets to be part of your game. And that's pretty much it. So once you do this, you should have your data asset working and can be serialized and work in a network environment. So let's go ahead and take a couple examples here on how to create a new pickup. All right, so we've made some changes to the pickup system where if we open the backpack here, as you can see, this uses a jig pickup component. This makes it easier to use other pickup systems. Like you don't have to use my pickup system. You can just simply add the pickup component and the multiplayer component to another system and it should work just fine. We'll see that later. So let's go ahead and create like a some new pickups, pickup examples such as a backpack, a weapon, attachments, some consumables. So in this video, I'll be kind of more doing like an overview of how the system works And another video we will see how to create a new inventory from scratch. But I will be talking a little bit about how the system recognizes your inventory layout and how it just works with multiplayer. So let's go ahead and see an example of how to create a new backpack. Okay, let's start with that. What you want to do here is you want to simply duplicate one of the existing data assets. So let's go ahead and let's go to demo pickups, pick up data assets, and then we have here a backpack. Okay, so you can simply duplicate this. Let's say name it backpack 2. Let's go and open that. So the item ID here, I'm going to select backpack 2. Item ID is not used a lot since now we use data assets. So the data asset reference itself is kind of an ID, but you can still use the item ID to do certain things. For the unique ID, we use the GUID, which is a very strong UID as opposed to the N32 ID. So backpack, so item ID here, we can simply specify backpack 2 or whatever. For the name, you can select whatever you want. Display name, you can also select whatever you want there. Description doesn't matter. So here, stock dimensions, obviously the how big is the item. So we can make this item like 5 by 5, why not? Make it like a very big item. Here, the type, this is just an enum. You can change that. So if we hover over the type, it says, well, it doesn't actually tell me the type there. But if I go to system here and simply look for type, and that's Jigsaw item type right here. So you can add new types if you want. But for the champion, I'm gonna select the backpack there. So rarity here is just the color. To modify the rarity colors or add more, you can select the Jigsaw folder here and look for rarity. And these are the rarity types. You can add more, obviously. And where this is used in GSI container. And if we go to the graph section and just look for rarity, and there you go, we have rarity colors. All right, so here it's simply selecting a certain color based on type. Now, obviously, you can add more if you have more types. Mainly here, make sure that the alpha is less than 1, so it's transparent. Obviously, if you need that, but by default it's 0.4. So that's where you can modify the rarity colors. So other things here are pretty straightforward. Can stack, obviously can't stack. Count, 1, weight, durability. Price here for the vendor. We could override that as well. So this can be the base price if you want. Then the actor class. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually look for this and simply duplicate this. Name it backpack 2. All right, so when you make a new pickup, you need to go to the jig component and select the data asset. All right. On another video, I will we'll see how to create a new pickup from scratch and also a new inventory from scratch. But for the time being, let's just take a look at how the system works. So here, mainly what you want to do here is you want to select the pickup component and then simply select the data asset, which is backpack 2 right there. So this is very important. So override count is only used with stackable items. So here in the demo, for example, this is BP or this is MO. So if we select the BP jig component, as you can see, we have override count 99. So this, if we play, pick the ammo there, as you can see, it says 99. So 99 items. That's where you specify a custom amount. If you leave it -1, it will take the amount from the data asset, which is by default here is count is 1. Obviously, this is not a stackable item, so we'll leave it at 1. Right. So as far as the pickup goes, we need to specify the data asset. And for the multiplayer component, this is only important if the item is a container. Obviously, this is a backpack, so it's a container, and we need to take care of that. And we'll do that later once we create the special container. So we'll leave that open for now. Going back to backpack 2 data asset. Obviously, you can specify, or here, we need to change the actor class. So backpack type 2, which is this one right there. Here, inventory image, only important if you don't need to use the inspector and item snap, but we can generate a snap at runtime. But if you don't need that, then you can simply specify a static texture. Obviously, this is on drag when you drag the item, and when you drop it, you can specify sound. So this is the most important thing here when it comes to an item, which is a container. So is it a container? Specify yes. All right. And then we need to specify a special container for it. So for certain items such as a weapon, a backpack, we need to use a special container because a special container is more interesting. It contains multiple containers. It's we need to handle it differently or a runtime. However, a mag, for example, it doesn't have to be a special container. It can just be a regular container. So also the main difference between a special container and a normal container is that a special container, you need to create it yourself and customize it, which is easy. We'll do that right now. And a normal container, it can be created automatically for you. You just need to specify the container dimensions. So a special container here, if we browse to this is the default special container. As you can see, two backpacks or two containers inside this backpack. So the easiest way to do another special container is to simply duplicate one of these, but let's just go ahead and do it from scratch. So all you got to do here is do use interface here, or user interface widget blueprint. So just a normal widget, and we're going to select the user widget right there. We're going to do BP. So backpack, let's call it SP number 2. Obviously I would duplicate one of these and just modify them, but I just want to show you how to do it from scratch. So this is a regular container. So all you got to do here, or a regular widget, you can modify it like as you would with any other widget. So I'm going to go ahead and do vertical box here. I'm going to make this container have 3 containers. Okay. So what you want to do here is simply add GSI containers. Okay. So you just want to simply drag it there. Here, instead of screen size, I'm going to do, or instead of full screen, I'm going to do desired. I'm gonna simply go ahead and add 3 here. So 1 and 2. I'm gonna use a spacer between them. Select both spacers and do like 5. I'm gonna make this a 5 by 3. I'm gonna make this also 5 by 3. And the last one, I'm gonna make it a 2 by 2, right? So this being 2 by 2, I'm going to center it right there. And this is our backpack, all right? So it has 3 containers. So select the container here, and on the right side, we have the details panel, and here we can modify certain things. Mainly container type, we're gonna leave it inventory because it's not an equipment. We'll do an equipment later when we create a weapon. But this is where it's gonna remain. It's gonna remain an inventory. We change the column and rows. Opacity value, you can change that. So there's a couple things you can change, but mainly here the most important thing is the supported items. Okay, so you can specify supported items. So if we click here, you can add specify, like, let's say that this container right here will only take money. So if you use currency, then this container will only accept currency. But being a backpack, obviously we wanted to accept anything, right? So we'll keep that empty. We'll modify that when we do attachments, because attachments obviously are important, where you only need to support certain things like a muzzle brake or things like that. By default, you can rotate using the R key, and you can split something with the left shift key. If you need to modify these, you can do it in the base class. Don't do it here. Just open GSI container, and if you want to modify the split key, you can just do it right here. So if you do it here, it will be applied to everything. But in case you need to be custom for a certain container, you can do it here as well. All right. So once we create our containers, the next thing here is to go to class settings. So in the graph, so class settings here, and then in the interface section. So in the interfaces here, you want to click add and add the GSI interface, or GSI special widget interface. And the main function that we want to handle here is get list of containers. So in order for our system to recognize what containers this special container has, we need to use this interface. So here we're going to return, let's go ahead and rename them actually to make it easier. So let's say GSI 1, GSI 2, and this is GSI 3. All right, then let's go ahead and return these containers like so. So here the order matters, okay? And I'm gonna show you why it matters in a second, but make sure, or at least remember the order here. So we have this 5.3 is first, another 5.3 is second, and the 2.2 is third. Okay, which is, this is the order 0, 1, 2. Also another interface here, so event set item ref. So this will give you the item reference of the backpack itself. So we might need it later. So let's go ahead and save it. So promote your variable. All right, so we might need this reference later, but this is the backpack itself. So right here we have these 3 containers. Okay, so now we need to go to GSI, to data asset. We need to set the special container, which is the, so BP backpack SP2, which is the special container that we just created right here. And next is the container dimensions. Okay, so how many containers do we have here? We have 3, so we need 3 items here. So 1, 2, 3, as you can see there. This is from the other backpack, but usually you would have 3 here, so add or 0, so we add 3 elements. And here we simply want to add the dimensions of the item. So if we go here, we have the first container. And once again, first, because it's returned first here, so we need to respect this order right here. So GSI 1 is the first container, which is a 5x3. This is also a 5x3, and this is a 2x2. So we need to indicate that here. So 5x3, then 5x3, and then 2x2. So you don't actually have to do this on your own. I will show you later how to do this with the utility. You can simply specify the special container and the utility will do it for you. So these are the dimensions of the item. So this is important for the server to know how this special container, how it looks like. So that's why we need to indicate it here. For the equipment here, we can leave it as the backpack. So this backpack will be equipped. We'll use the same backpack socket. So for the inspector, same thing. We'll select this backpack and select anything. You can select a skeletal or a static mesh here, and then these items right here. I'll show you later how to modify those. Local attachments. This is only used with attachments. Now, before we continue, we need to do one more thing here. Is we need to go to the pickup item here. Select the jig multiplayer component here, and as you can, since we said that this is a container, now we need to modify the jig multiplayer component to in case we need to add starter items or something like that. We need to do it here. So first of all, component type is by default pickup because this inherits from the main pickup class, and we need to do the same thing here. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear that. So first is the inventory widget class. It needs to be the same as the data asset, which is the BP or our special container number 2 that we just created. And for container settings here, so here we need to enter same thing, 3 elements here, and we need to do the same thing. So container, you can give it a name if you want. I'm not going to do that right now. This is only important if you want to handle the multiplayer component events. We'll do that. We'll show an example of that later, but for the time being, we don't need a specific name here. Columns, same thing, 5.3. Once again, I'll show you later how to do this with the utility, and you don't have to type it yourself. So 5.3, and finally this container is a 2x2. All right, and now it's gonna make sure that our pickup here actually has those modifications done, and there you go. All right, now if you go ahead and play, here's our backpack. It says backpack 2. You can actually loot. As you can see, it shows the items there. I can actually add my things there, and then I can pick it up. And here's in our inventory here. Let's go ahead and check this loot container and see if we can add some items from it. Right there. As you can see, it works as intended. So we created our backpack there, and it should be, like I said, a 5x5. Let's go ahead and see if I can. As you can see, it's a 5x5, and I can actually move it right there. Okay, so it works as intended. Then what you can do here is you can go to the backpack pickup itself. You can select the multiplayer component. Then let's say that in the first container, I want to add some items. Now, if you want to add some starting items to this backpack, you can do it from here, or you can do it from here. If you do it from here, from the blueprint itself, then it will be applied to every pickup on the map. Whereas if you do it here, it will only be applied to this specific instance. And you can actually do this with the utility as well. But just to show you the basics here, let's say that our first container, I'm gonna add a, let's say I'm gonna add a bottle. All right, I'm gonna add like a water bottle there. Spawn chance 100%, and index -1. It will find an item or like a suitable spot for it. And if I go and play, go and loot this backpack, as you can see, it has an empty bottle. Like I said, you don't have to do this on your own. Let's go and clear the starting items. Alright, so when it comes to the utility, there are certain things that you don't necessarily need to do manually. First thing is, when it comes to the multiplayer data here, so we went here and added these 3 containers. You don't actually have to do this manually. You can actually clear them here. Okay, you can actually select the backpack and the map. Okay, as you can see, we have nothing here, and there's actually a button here. You can click set container settings from widget. So all you gotta do is select the special container. As you can see here, container settings is empty. If you click the button, it will add the 3 elements automatically. It will actually take the container name as well. So if we go to the special container here, let's say that this, let's just change the name here to container, or let's just say test 1, okay, test 2, and test 3. Save, and then if I go back to the pickup itself here, select the multiplayer component, clear the container settings, and then click on set container settings. As you can see, it will take the container name you set in the widget. It will set the column and rows accordingly. Then what you can do is right click the container settings, click copy, and then you want to paste them in the blueprint itself. Okay, because we modified the instance and the map, but it's not going to modify the blueprint itself. I wish there was a way to modify the blueprint itself from a utility widget, but at this point I don't know how to do that. But you can select the multiplayer here and then simply right click paste. All right, there you go. So another thing here with the utility is if you go to Jigsaw utility helper, and then first thing before we use the utility is you need to go to the all jig assets here, and you need to add all your data assets here. The easiest way to do that, if you go and click or clear here, you can go to where your data assets are. In this case, it's in pickup data assets. So I have them all prefixed with jigda. So you can simply go to the root folder, search for all of them, select everything, and then drag over everything here and simply paste them right here. There you go. So they're all here. Okay, so once you do this, now you can just go ahead and play. You can run the utility helper here. So right click, run editor, and you can actually select the backpack there. Okay, refresh, and you can see it's going to show your item there, or pickup. Then we can simply click here, add all. It will add everything from the all the data asset items here. And let's say that I want to set this backpack with some items, add an armor there, add a helmet here, add a headphones here, set data. Now if we go and play, load the item, as you can see, these are the items right there. Another thing with the utility is you can click on set container info and data asset. So what this will do is you will go through the data asset, okay, and it will simply set the container dimensions for you. So if I go ahead and clear this, and all I gotta do here is enter the special container widget. This is kind of useful if you're like creating a lot of pickups, a lot of items, and you don't want to go through you want to go manually and set the container dimensions, or if in case you just want to make sure that everything is set correctly, you don't have to enter the container dimensions on your own. You can simply select the special container and then click on this button. As you can see, processing 40 data assets, 37 modified. If we go back to this, as you can see, they were added automatically. Okay, now very important, because there's no way for me to save the data asset from the utility helper. In C++, I know how to do that, but in Blueprint, there is no way. So you actually need to save the data asset. All right. So once you're done with your modification, you can actually just do it real quick here. So what you can do is the same thing. You want to go to the pickups, data asset, jig da, select everything, and then Control C, and it will Control S, and it will save everything. All right, so that's how you use the utility. You don't actually have to set up the everything on your own. You can just use the utility. So another thing with the utility is we know that this button right here can set up your container settings. You can also do it from the utility. So if I clear this, and obviously you need the special container set. So if you don't have it set, let's go ahead and actually try that. Then run the utility. If we select the backpack, refresh, as you can see, it's going to say, please set a widget. Obviously, we need to set the special container there. So here, backpack 2, right there. Now if we click refresh, it'll show the special container, and it will actually automatically set the container settings here. Okay, so you can either do it from here, do it from the utility. It's going to do the same thing. So the utility here can be used to modify any items, all right, in the map. So let's say that this weapon right here, refresh, and you can modify its attachments. Let's say that you don't want this weapon to start with a stock. We can remove that, set data. Now if we play, you're gonna see that this rifle doesn't have a stock set by default. You can do it for anything. You can actually modify this loot container as well. Refresh, you can modify however you want, set data, etc. You can even modify the crafting station as well. So you can use this utility helper to do a lot of things. If you want to modify the content of a container, you can select the container and then lock. And then now you can add like items to it, like that. So before creating new items, let's go ahead and take a look at some other actors here in the demo that are pretty straightforward. We just need to see what they're how to modify them. So for example, the crafting station, it's the same thing. They all use the multiplayer component, and it's just a matter of selecting the multiplayer component, and it's the same thing. Like this crafting station uses a BP station crafting widget. It's kind of the same thing as a special container. So if we open this, it's a regular container. It has 3 containers, and it's using the same interface. List of, as you can see, it's returning the 3 containers, and it has the same logic pretty much. So if we select the crafting station, select the multiplayer component, it has these 3 right here. Once again, you can click the button, it will set that for you, but here it has 6, 10, etc. So when it comes to the crafting station though, you don't specify the starting items here. You actually do it in the items to craft. Okay, so this section right here, you add your items, the item to craft, you can select the data asset like a backpack, and then the items needed here. So the items needed, you can simply specify what items you need to craft the item, so pretty straightforward. And time to craft, this is how long it will take for the item to be crafted. So here 900 seconds. If we go ahead and to the crafting station here, let's say that I want to craft this suppressor. It needs 10 762. Let's go ahead and grab that. I don't have, oh, actually let's go ahead and pick this backpack. It has some 762. And if I select the suppressor, click craft, as you can see, it's going to take a minute to craft this guy, and I can actually leave and come back later and the countdown will continue. So you modified that here. So the suppressor is actually let's see, where is the suppressor? Here we go. So here's the suppressor. As you can see, it takes 60 seconds to craft. Okay, all right. So when it comes to vendor, also pretty straightforward. It also uses the multiplayer component, same thing. It has a widget, and here we specify the container settings for it, 8x10. This is the vendor widget. As you can see here, same thing, uses the same interface, right? This returns 1 container, and here vendor multiplayer component there, you can specify the starting items. And the main thing about this here is the override price. Okay, so you can override a certain price for the vendor instead of, if this is by default -1, but if you leave it -1, it will take the price from the data table. If you specify a price, then it will use this instead. Same thing for any other container, simply the multiplayer component. It has a widget, same concept, and you can simply specify your starting items here. You can use the utility as well to quickly modify the starting items. Alright, so for the sake of not making this video very long, we will take a look at some existing items such as the rifle. We'll see how it's set up. Also take a look at the attachments and how they're replicated and etc. So in the next video we will see how to create the inventory from scratch and handle everything. Like maybe also do like a pickup from scratch as well, a pickup system, since it uses components and it's easier to simply create a new pickup system and simply add the components and it should work just fine. So modular rifle right here. This modular rifle, if we look for the data asset for that, so modular rifle, here is the data asset for it. So modular rifle, item ID, same thing. It has a special container. So I do want to do a separate video on how to create a new weapon with its attachments from scratch. But for the time being, we'll just take a look at how this is made. So the first thing here is these are GSI containers. Okay, so you can just look for here a GSI container. If we drag it there, this is the GSI container. Main thing here is it's not inventory, it's equip to. All right, so it's an equip. And then obviously when you set it to equip to slot, this doesn't matter. You can change the slot size. You can increase it if you want. But for this time we're gonna set it at 60. Then let's go and delete that. So anything else, so other things are mainly the supported item types. So here we say only mag is supported. Here only compensator and suppressor is supported. Here only rifle sight and triangle sight are supported. So this controls what items can go to this container. And that's pretty much it. Like we have container name, the other thing here. Also support item types, weapon attachment. So this is the general type. So if we look at a sight, so attachments, let's look for a rifle sight. As you can see, type is weapon attachment. So you can actually, select the general type, which is the weapon attachment, and then you can enter specific items. And of course the container name here. So sight is what we see here, and you can also modify the font. All right, so we have size 8 here, we can do 12, and it will modify the font. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 containers. Main thing, like we've seen earlier, it uses the same thing. So list of containers, and it returns all of these. So as you can see, 0 to 7, so 8 items. And the data asset here we have 8 items. So -1 means it's an equip to container. So an equip to containers, the columns and rows don't matter, okay, because it's an equipment slot. We don't care about how big an item is. If we can equip it, we will equip it. So that's why we enter -1. And once again, if you use the utility, it will automatically do that for you. But -1 means it's an equip to, as opposed to what we've seen with the backpack. So we return the items here. So the order matters here because in the modular rifle here, let's go and open that. If we select the multiplayer component, these are once again the container settings, 8 items. So the order matters because when we want to add starting items to it, we need to know which one is first, which one is second. So 0 is the first container. So if I want to add a mag to this rifle, I need to do it here in this first container. So this is where I add a mag, as you can see, because it's the first container. If I want to add like a handguard, it's going to be at 7. So 7. So where is 7? It's right here. So this is where I would add a handguard. Right there. So that's why the order matters. And you don't need to care about too much about this. If you just use the utility, it will just take care of that, take care of everything for you. Other than setting the special container dimensions and the special container, it's pretty straightforward. For the inspector, like I said, you can simply specify a modular rifle here. And then to control this, you can simply, like I said, do it through the item itself. So you want to open this, click on toggle. Let's say I want it to be slightly rotated. I'll check this, set inside DA, and then I'll simply maybe modify this slightly, like that maybe. And that will actually do it, write it in the data asset directly, as you can see. So if we inspect transform, as you can see, it wrote that 30 right there. Okay, so all you gotta do is just save it. But for the time, I'm gonna keep it as 0. Now for attachment, all right. So let's say this stock, or let's say a sight. All right, so we have rifle sight. So this is an attachment. We enter the name, description, everything. Type weapon attachment. Rarity doesn't matter. Main thing here, so it is not a container, obviously. So right here, container dimensions don't matter here. If it's not a container, this doesn't matter. You can enter whatever here, it don't matter. The inspector, we have a static mesh. We can control that through the widget. So the main thing about attachments is the local attachment. So what you want to do here is you want to create a local attachment. So if we browse to this, we have this local attachment. You can just duplicate this if you want, or you can make an actor based on the main local attachment. And if we open the site, all we gotta do here is just enter the static mesh right there, like so, and then specify this class inside the data asset itself. So right there, BP local rifle site. Then you want to enter the site or the socket. So this site socket right there, it needs to be in the mesh itself. So that's going to be modular rifle. So that's the rifle socket right there. That's where the site will be attached. And then you want to specify the attachment type. So site in this case. So this local attached to hand socket, this is only used when we reload or check mag. So we use this to attach the mag to this socket right here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, it's pretty straightforward when it comes to adding new items. One thing about containers is when you don't use the special container. So let's say, actually let's go ahead and take a look at the bottle, since it's a consumable and a container at the same time. So let's go ahead and do bottle. So water bottle here. So as you can see, it is set to as a container. So container is true. However, we don't have a special container set, as you can see there. So when you don't specify a container, it will actually create a simple container for you automatically. And here is where you need to add like what items are supported. You can do it from here as well. And of course here, container only support IDs. It only supports water. And for consumables, all you got to do here is just set the type to consumable. Then the max stack is actually used to determine the item capacity. So the max stack is kind of working two ways. If the item is stackable, then max stack is used to determine the max stack. If it's not a stackable item and it is a container, then this variable is used as the max capacity. So if we go ahead and play, as you can see, the 150 is coming from this max stack. But don't look at it as max stack. It's just used in that context. So that's the first example. The other example is a mag. So a mag works the same way. So main thing is, it is a container. It doesn't have a special container. And so its container is 2x10. So this is going to be easier to show. So if we enable one option here, which is open container on double click, we're actually going to enable that. By default, we disable it for mags because If you want to unload the ammo, we just right click and load ammo. But if we just pick up a mag, then double click, this is the container. You see, this is not a special container. This was created automatically, but by just simply specifying that this is a container and without specifying the special container. If you specify a special container, then the special container will be used. So obviously with a mag, you don't need a special container. You can just let the system create a simple container and work with that. So you specify it right here. So you add 1 item to 10, and then that's where the ammo will go. And here where we add the container supported items, only ammunition, and specific items, 545. And one thing here, once again, max stack is used as a way to determine how big the mag is, or the capacity of the mag. So similar to the water bottle, here it's used the same way. It's not stacking, obviously, but this variable is used to determine how big the mag is. So if I do 60 there, go to pick up the mag, as you can see, it's gonna be 0 out of 60 right there. So that's how this max stack is used. So this was pretty much just an overview of how to use, or how to quickly use the demo to modify, add new items, add new pickups, see how the system works. I will be making specific videos for each section. So I'll be making a video on how to create a weapon, for example, how to create a mag, etc. So it's easier for you to come back later and just simply watch that like 3-minute video, for example, as opposed to this 1-hour video. Also, I'll be doing how to create a new inventory from scratch. Actually, just real quickly here, for the main inventory, it's actually also the same concept. If we open the character, and the character also has a multiplayer component, and it's same thing. It has a widget, which is the main inventory, which is this one right here. It also uses the same interface, so list of containers, and it literally returns the same containers. Obviously the order once again matters. If we go here, there you go, head, why head is first, 0, because it's also here is first. Okay, you can add starting items here. You can even use the utility with the character as well. Just put the character in the world and then use the utility on it. One thing with the character is another function called get list of non-add containers. So this is the stash. So this is used so when we pick up an item from the world, it doesn't take the stash into consideration. And here we have like 2 more items here, which is the exclude main container indexes from loot, and we have 13 and 14. 13 is the secure container. So 13 is the secure container, 14 is the stash. So what this does is when the character is dead and you loot the character, you're not going to receive or be able to loot the stash and the secure container, because those are special containers. So if you want to exclude any containers from being looted, this is where you use it. And exclude main container index from vendor currency, this right here, 14 is the stash. So when you buy an item or sell an item to a vendor, the money will not be given or will not be added to your stash, and will not be taken from your stash. So that's where it's used. And obviously for crafting, it's the same thing as a crafting station, but you craft things faster. So you use this time to craft as well, so 10 seconds. It's the same concept. So that's pretty much it for this video. So I think when looking at the demo, you should look at it as a reference. So if you want to make a new weapon or something, you can always come back to the demo and see how a certain item is set up. And usually you can just simply duplicate one of the existing items and simply modify the name, description, maybe add a new container, etc. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.